You are watching the replay. At the time of this recording, it is the Black Friday weekend or Cyber Weekend, or whatever you call it. And I hope everyone is doing well and their credit cards and their bank accounts haven't been hit too hard from all the sales that you've been attending and buying up. But hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Nguyen. And in this video live stream, I wanted to talk a bit about social media. So I'm going to share some social media tips on how do you actually create social media content and posts. I'm going to share my tips to help make social media easier for you, simplify some things for you so that you can, get not some inspiration, but get some structure around creating social media more easily, more effortlessly, so it flows so you can get your content out there. So when it comes to creating social media content, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed because there's a lot going on. You're creating content in the form of videos, you're creating content in the form of images and posts, and then you've got to manage it across all the different social media platforms, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and all the other platforms out there. So how do you create social media content in a way that doesn't overwhelm you and in a way that you can sustain? The first tip for that is to create social media content, but do it in the sense of repurposing. So instead of creating a separate piece of content for every single platform, for example, instead of creating a separate image for Facebook, and a separate image for Instagram, and a separate post for your blog, and then something separate for another social media platform, try the best that you can to create one piece that you can use across multiple social media platforms. And what does that look like, and what am I talking about? So for example, I'm a big fan of video because I feel that you can deploy this strategy the most efficiently. So with video, after you've created the video, you can also create a transcript, generate a transcript of the video using resources such as Temi.com. And from that transcript, you can then find some nice little quotes and bitables. I call them bitables. I'm pretty sure it's a made up word. And then you can take the text from the transcript and then turn that into a social media post. Turn that into a graphic that you can create yourself in Canva, a great graphic tool to use. So from that one video, you've got some social media posts. You can also take that video and embed it to your blog. So that's another piece of content that you've created without actually creating something separate. And then with your blog post, you can add some pin images and then share it to Pinterest. So you've got a lot of leverage you've got all this leverage onto all these different platforms from one piece of content. So instead of trying to create multiple pieces of content for the different platforms, try the best that you can to leverage the one piece in multiple ways, and that will save you so much time. I remember when I first started out and I was like, oh, I need to create something separate for Facebook. I need to create something separate for Twitter. I need to create something separate for Instagram, and it becomes so overwhelming. And when I, started to implement this repurposing strategy, it just made life so much easier, and it made creating social media content so much nicer. And you may be saying to yourself, well, aren't people going to see the same stuff over and over? And the answer is no. So all of your, followers don't necessarily follow you on all the social media platforms at the same time. And if they do, seeing your content again isn't a bad thing because it reinforces your message. It shows that you show up, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It becomes a bad thing when you spam people and you put out crap essentially, but I know that's not what you're going to do. So my first tip to creating more social media content easily is to repurpose your content instead of creating different pieces of content for all the different platforms. Now, my second tip, and this is the tip that I think changed how I created content and got me to be consistent. And the second tip to creating social media content is to create a calendar. I know you like calendar. Well, nah. Create a calendar and stick to it. So I have a friend who is a great YouTuber. She's got a big following on YouTube. Haruna, if you're watching, hello. And when I was talking about how did she grow her following from 0 to, she's got like close to 70,000 or 80,000 YouTube subscribers. And I'm like, girl, how did you do that? And she said for her, it really was about setting a calendar of, okay, each week I'm going to do X amount of videos or, post X amount of things and then sticking to it. And I understand that life happens and that sometimes things get in the way of you being able to create content, but having a calendar that you work towards and you stick to is a big part of being able to do it sustainably. So for me, I find that as a content creator, I'm always trying to refine the process and figure out what works for me. So in terms of my calendar, I test out what works. So there was a stage where I was doing 3 videos a week on YouTube, and that honestly really almost broke me. It was too much for me. It was too much for my team to manage, and I needed to scale it down. After doing that for 2 weeks, it was not good. So after trying that, it didn't work. It didn't mean that I then gave up, but then I scaled it down. And I've scaled it down now to once a week, but then I'm able to really focus on putting out an amazing piece of main content, YouTube content, and then I can repurpose it, like I spoke about in tip number 1, really well. So create a calendar of what works for you and test it out. Just because you create the calendar doesn't mean that you are stuck with it for life. It's about tweaking it, but having a calendar and having something to work towards makes a really, really big difference in terms of you having a plan and you having something that keeps you accountable. So have a calendar that you map out of what content you're going to create and release and when you're going to create and release it. And now my third, but definitely not the least of the tips, just grabbing some water, is when it comes to social media and creating content, I think one of the biggest problems that people have is that they want everything to be perfect. Perfect before they can release it, perfect before they're happy with it. So my tip number 3 to help you create social media content is to let go of perfect. There's a saying that done is better than perfect. And I see all the time people get so caught up in, I haven't got everything down pat. I haven't got all of the animations. I haven't got all of the transitions. I just can't do it. And the truth is, what happens is that because you are so stuck on trying to have the perfect piece of content, you end up not doing anything at all. And that is the real disservice, because there's someone out there who needs to hear what you've got to say. I'm a strong believer in the serendipity of life, and that we're here to help other people, and that we need to put our stuff out there to get our message across, because there's someone out there who needs to hear it. So let go of perfect, whatever that is for you. A lot of times with video, I have viewers email me and contact me saying, how do you create videos? I don't want to release videos until they look like yours. And I think, no, I think you should, because I've created my videos with my transitions and my style to reflect my personality and brand. If you don't have all of that stuff, you should still put out your content, because even though I have all these other things, the core of what I produce is the content. And there's nothing wrong with growing your content. So starting from a place where perhaps you don't have all the bells and whistles, but your content is solid, and then adding it as you go along. So this allows you to continue to practice creating content, and it helps you get more confident so you can refine it. So let go of perfect and just put it out there. Did you hear that? Just put it out there, because you'll find that it gets easier, and you'll find that you get better. And you'll probably find that when you first start creating content, what you put out is not always necessarily that great. And this is true for most things in life. When you were a baby, when you were learning to walk, you weren't very good. I wasn't very good. But how did you get better? You kept doing it. You didn't get mad at yourself because you couldn't walk. Well, maybe you did. I don't know. But either way, you didn't stop because it was, it wasn't perfect the first few times. And then you got there by continually doing it, and then you mastered it. And now you can walk. So it really is the same with social media. When you first put it out there, it's clunky and you don't know what you're doing and it's not beautiful. But as you continue to do it, you find better ways to create it. It gets easier, it gets less stressful and overwhelming. And that is what helps you grow and put out more. So there you have it, my 3 social media tips on how to create social media content and posts. I talked about repurposing your content. I talked about creating a calendar and sticking to that so that you can be more consistent and you have something to work towards, and tweaking it and refining it into what works for you. And I talked about letting go of perfect. So create, even though you don't think it's amazing, put it out there anyway and continue to refine as you go. So I hope you enjoyed my social media tips. I'm going to put a link in the description to my social media checklist if you are interested in, or if you want like a bit of help setting up your social media and figuring out what goes where. I've got a bit of a checklist for you, so I'll put a link in the description to that. So check that out if you haven't got it already. And I look forward to chatting to you in the next live stream and video. Bye for now.